This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Squiz Kids! It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Monday, May 3. In Squiz Kids today, SpaceX splashdown, the world's first 3D printed house, quiet day at the footy, and Aussie Angry Bird voted most attractive. That's what's making news, kids style.
The lowdown.
Well, aren't you all a clever bunch of small people? New figures released by the government yesterday show that Australian kids have broken new records in terms of the number who are vaccinated. No, we're not talking about coronavirus vaccines. We're talking about the vaccines that kids routinely get in Australia and in many other countries to help protect them from lots of other nasty illnesses. According to our government in Canberra, who keep track of these sorts of things, more than 95% of 5-year-olds in Australia rolled up their sleeves for a series of jabs at the beginning of this year, the highest rate on record. Around the world, the average rate of vaccination of 5-year-olds is 86%, which means we are a world leader when it comes to being brave and copping a needle in the arm. Well done you. And we have splashdown. That's the technical term given to when a space capsule returns from outer space and splashes down into the ocean, which is what happened late yesterday afternoon in waters off Florida in the United States, when 4 astronauts who had spent 6 months aboard the International Space Station returned to Earth. It's a big deal because SpaceX is hoping to build a space tourism industry, ferrying paying customers to and from space. So, that could be someone like you or me. Sometimes space capsules land back on Earth. Other times they splash down at sea, where the crew float around for a little bit until they are collected by one of the many ships that wait for their arrival. I've stuck a link to video of the splashdown in today's episode notes. Welcome back, astronauts.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in the Netherlands, where the world's first 3D printed house has been built. Wait, what? A 3D printed house? Yes, indeed. A 2-bedroom bungalow that was made almost entirely by a 3D printer. 3D printers are amazing pieces of technology capable of building pretty much anything you can imagine. And for a country that has a growing population, as the Netherlands does, on a planet that's looking for ways to make the way we live our lives more environmentally friendly, building houses using 3D printer technology is a win-win. And get this, the entire house took only 120 hours to build. The 3D printer placed down layer upon layer of concrete to create the walls of the bungalow, which looks a lot like a big grey boulder with windows, like something out of the Flintstones, which is a reference none of you will get, but your parents or teachers might. I've stuck a link to photos of the house and to a clip of the Flintstones in today's episode notes.
Sport time.
It was an eerily quiet local derby over in Perth yesterday when Western Australian AFL rivals, the West Coast Eagles, took on the Fremantle Dockers at Perth Stadium. A local derby is when 2 teams from the same area face each other in competition. And with the Eagles headquartered in Perth and the Dockers in neighbouring Fremantle, huge crowds were expected for the big match. But following a mini-COVID outbreak in Perth on the weekend, linked to a quarantine hotel security guard, the WA Premier Mark McGowan ordered that there be no crowd in attendance. So far, there's been no lockdown announced in Perth as a result of the COVID cases, and fingers are crossed it will remain that way. And as for who won, the West Coast Eagles, 2012-132 to 11-7-73.
Animal Kingdom.
It's the angriest looking bird on the planet, But according to a poll examining Instagram likes, Australia's own Tawny Frogmouth has been declared the most photogenic feathered creature in the world. What does photogenic mean? It means something looks appealing when it's photographed. And why would a bird that looks like it has a permanent frown be judged to be the most photographically appealing bird in the world? According to the pollsters, it has something to do with the fact that unlike most birds, the Tawny Frogmouth, which is often confused with being an owl, has both of its eyes on the front of its head, not on the side, giving it a more human and appealing look. And what a pair of eyes they are. Check out the link in today's episode notes to a video about Tawny Frogmouths, and make sure you watch until you see the chicks. They are the very definition of adorable.
Q&A call out.
Quick! Are you ready for Naplan? It's coming up next week, but don't worry, it's just a test, and it's certainly nothing to get worked up about. And to prove it, we've invited Peter Titmanis, one of the grown-ups responsible for creating the test, to take the Squiz Kids hot seat and answer any and all questions that you might have. But today's the last day to get your questions in for Peter by emailing squizkids@thesquiz.com.au. You won't be allowed to ask him the answer to number 6, but he's likely to have lots of good information about how schools use NAPLAN results and advice on how to stay cool as a cucumber during the testing period. There's a prize, of course, for the best question, so get cracking.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What's the name of the space company whose capsule just landed back on Earth? That's right, it's SpaceX. Question number 2. In which country has a 3D printed house just been built? Yeah, it's the Netherlands. Question number 3. Which Australian bird has been voted the most photogenic in an Instagram poll? You got it, it's the Tawny Frogmouth.
Shout-outs.
It's May 3, the Labor Day public holiday in Queensland and Northern Territory. Lucky ducks. And just a normal day at school for the rest of you. Sorry. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Peyton from Shoal Bay, Charlie from Esperance, and Dean from Doreen. And some belated birthday shout-outs today to Hugh from Collaroy Plateau, Max and Charlie from Paralawi, Abigail from Kingsgrove, Jake from New South Wales, Jessica from Newcastle, and Lucy from Lane Cove. And today's classroom shout-outs go to Class 3-4C at Rangebank Primary School, Classes 5M and 5T at Beaconsfield Primary School, Mr Stewart's Year 5-6 class at Burrawa Central School, Class 2B and Miss Boosfield at St John the Apostle in Narrowena, and Class 5B, St Peter's Catholic Primary School in Rochdale. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout-out, or if you're after a classroom shout-out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids. We'll be back again tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out. Squiz Kids is proudly supported by the Judith Neilson Institute for Journalism and Ideas.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.